Hi folks, HR Funk here. Out on the range today to bring you number 10 in my series on Law Enforcement Qualification Course Challenge videos. When I finish up with this course today, I will have completed firing law enforcement firearms qualification courses from 20% of the United States. I also have acquired courses for just shy of half the country, but I still need your help with more. As you know, my goal is to fire a law enforcement firearms qualification course from each of the 50 states and then try to determine what I think is the best firearms qualification course in the country. If you happen to have access to your state's law enforcement firearms qualification courses and you can get me a copy of those, I would greatly appreciate it. If you can get me a target or two, that would be fantastic. Let me know in the comments section and I'll let you know where to send those materials to. Also, as I've mentioned before, if you happen to be from one of those states that does not have a statewide law enforcement qualification firearms course, but allows local jurisdictions to develop their own course, if you can get me a copy of a course from a local jurisdiction, I'll use it as a representative of that state. Today's course comes to us from the state of Florida, and this is the Law Enforcement Officer Firearms Qualification Standard as set forth by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Florida uses a 40-round course that's divided into 6 stages of fire. It begins as close as a distance of 1 to 3 yards from the target, and I'm not indecisive on that. It actually says for the first stage to start at a distance of 1 to 3 yards. So apparently anywhere between 1 yard and 3 yards is acceptable for that stage. In any regard, through the progression of 6 stages, it moves back ultimately to a distance of 15 yards from the target. There are different drills fired at each of the 6 stages, and I will explain what the drill is going to be before I fire it, as always, just so you know what it is you're about to watch. The Florida course requires a score of 80% in order for the officer undergoing qualification to pass. That means 32 of the 40 rounds have to be in the proper area of the target. Now, the target that I'm using today is not the Florida target. The Florida target is a modified B21E target, and that particular target, although I tried to find one here locally, was one that I just could not conjure up. The good news is I think this old Ohio target will be a pretty fair approximation. In the actual B21E target used by Florida, the scoring area is roughly the same size as this inner area of the old Ohio target. Now there are 2 different areas on the Florida target. There's a smaller area inside and then there's a larger area around it. The inside area is the 5 ring and the outer area is the 4 ring. But it's still the 4 ring and the 5 ring both count toward qualifications so long as the bullets strike in those areas. And again, this is roughly the size of that outer 4 ring, might even be slightly smaller than the 4 ring used by Florida. Arm hits don't count, only shots within this area are going to count. And again, I think so long as I'm staying inside this area, I'm going to meet the accuracy standard as set forth by Florida with their B21E target. The challenger for today's video is my Smith & Wesson CS9 9mm pistol. This pistol represents the smallest factory-produced evolution of the classic Smith & Wesson Model 39 that you might remember from a few weeks ago in one of these videos. These pistols were manufactured from 1998 until roughly 2005 or so. I purchased this one in 1999 and it was a constant companion for about 14 years until I finally replaced it with a Smith & Wesson Shield a few years ago. Even so, this was such a good little pistol, I couldn't let it out of my collection. I still have it, and it's going to be our challenger for today as we pit it against the Florida Law Enforcement Firearms Qualification Handgun course. And as a point of interest, the CS9 is the first compact pistol to be featured in one of these Law Enforcement Qualification Course Challenge videos. Even though the course that I'm about to fire was designed for full-size duty pistols, I'm going to see how the compact CS9 performs. And here we go. As I said a moment ago, the first stage of this qualification course may be fired anywhere from 1 to 3 yards from the target. I'm going to split the difference and start at 2 yards. From this position, the shooter begins with the firearm secured in the holster. On a signal to fire, the shooter has to draw, assume a hip firing position, and fire 2 rounds into the body of the target in a time limit of 4 seconds. The shooter then reholsters the pistol, and the drill is repeated 1 time for a total of 4 rounds. Stage 2 of this course is fired at a distance of 3 yards from the target. In this exercise, the shooter begins with the pistol in the low ready position. On the signal to fire, the shooter has 1 second to fire 2 rounds into the body of the target. This drill is repeated 3 times for a total of 6 rounds. Also, I should have said before I shot the first stage, with the CS9, since the first shot is double action, I am decocking the pistol and firing that first shot double action on each stage, and each successive shot, of course, is fired single action. Stage 3 of this course takes place at a distance of 7 yards from the target. From here, the shooter fires 3 different drills. The first drill begins with the pistol secured in the holster. On a signal to fire, the shooter has 4 seconds to draw and fire 2 rounds into the body of the target. Time then stops. The shooter goes to a low ready position. On a second signal to fire, the shooter again has 4 seconds to fire 2 rounds into the body. The shooter goes back to the low ready position. Again, there's a signal to fire, 4 more seconds to fire 2 more rounds into the body. Stage 4 of this course is also fired from the 7-yard line. In this exercise, the shooter begins with the pistol secured in the holster. On the signal to fire, the shooter has to draw and fire 3 rounds into the body of the target in a time limit of 5 seconds. This drill is repeated 1 time, so when I'm done, I will have fired a total of 6 rounds. And stage 5 also takes place at a distance of 7 yards from the target. In this exercise, once more, the pistol begins secured in the holster. On a signal to fire, the shooter has 45 seconds to fire 12 rounds. There is a mandatory reload in this stage. It does not indicate in the course description where the reload is supposed to occur. So I'm just going to load the pistol with 6 rounds, and when it runs dry at the 6th round point, I will perform my reload and then fire my second 6 rounds. And again, the entire exercise has to be completed within a time limit of 45 seconds. That was 14.31 seconds, folks. I don't think I'm going to wait for the beep. Sixth and final stage of the course, folks. This stage of the course takes place at a distance of 15 yards from the target, and the shooter once again begins with the pistol secured in the holster. On the signal to fire, the shooter draws and has 30 seconds to fire 6 rounds into the body of the target. (13.02 seconds, folks. Again, I don't think I'm going to wait for the beep. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd say my CS9, for the first compact pistol to make an appearance in these videos, did a pretty good job. And that's the course, folks. The tail of the target is a pretty short one. All 40 of my rounds are inside of the proper scoring area for this target. And as I said at the beginning of the video, this target, accuracy-wise, is a pretty fair stand-in for Florida's official B-21E target. Now with the Florida course, we see yet another take on the concept of police officers qualifying with their firearms. The Florida course is pretty much a straight-up evaluation of the officer's shooting ability. There's not much in the way of tactical criteria that's evaluated during this course. There's no shooting from cover, there's no shooting and moving, there's no ambidextrous shooting, none of that stuff. It's pretty much all strictly just drawing and firing, with exception of the second stage that begins in the low ready position where you have to fire the 2 shots in 1 second, which by the way is a pretty good challenge even from that relatively close distance. And I'm not being critical of the Florida course as I point these things out. I'm just discussing the actual aspects of this qualification course. But this is course number 10, which means the next video I make in this series is going to be my first evaluation of my first group of 10 qualification courses. In that one, I will explain the system I came up with for rating the courses, and I will also declare the winner, or what I think is the best qualification course of that group of the first 10 courses from those 10 different states. Also, I'll end up picking my favorite firearm, and if you notice, there were 10 different firearms used in each one of these qualification courses. And I divided things up pretty evenly. There were 5 revolvers and 5 semi-auto pistols. So it should be pretty interesting when I break those down and pick my favorite of that bunch. Oh, and one more thing before I go. I always forget this. Remember, if you purchase anything from Optics Planet, be sure to use my discount code when you check out, and you'll get 5% off your entire purchase. Now, as a reminder, my discount code is exactly the same as my channel name, which is But that's it for this video today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, forward those to me. And until next time, good shooting. Bye-bye.